We did it.
It's good.
We did it.
It's a good goddamn thing we invested in that rocket launcher.
I'm glad we had it. The grenade launcher helped too. We were able to shoot at its feet.
The landmines were real good investment.
I'm down to
Good
I
job,
got one
Derek.
flashbang left. That was all the ammo's gone.
Thanks for sticking it in the leg with an old fork, Derek.
Hey,
Well, that's what I had on me.
I mean, it worked.
It did nothing.
Look, I've done a lot of research in a giant robotic zombie ducks, and I
Yeah.
knew that was its weak spot.
Well,
right,
what's your
right
source
behind
material
the
on that?
it's basically it's like the Necronomicon, but instead of like demons and like those sorts of
it's
things.
the Quackronomicon.
Yeah, it's the Quackronomicon.
Look, here's the thing.
quality joke.
I can't for
Hashtag.
certain say if it was the fork in its ankle that killed it or the also at the same time the rocket launch that Dylan placed directly into its face.
Well,
it's a timing thing.
We'll probably never know.
Derek gave us the opening.
That's
with
true.
The, with the fork.
Yeah, good moves there. Anyway, Dylan, we were going to talk a little bit about your history into nerddom and things that we associate with you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Derek, what do you associate with Dylan?
One of the things we've actually already mentioned. Actually, a couple of things we've already
Batman.
already mentioned. Batman.
Which Batman is Dylan's Batman?
Ooh. I don't know if I have an answer for that.
It's Batfleck.
It's definitely not.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Probably like Greg Capullo's Batman, right? Because you two were the first two to read Metal together. Like,
That's true.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I got
That's it,
into
it's
metal
like-
pretty immediately.
Yeah. We jumped on Metal pretty quickly. I was excited for it before it came out, and then it was like the closer we got to it, the crazier it got.
Yeah, I
And-
remember seeing a preview for it, and I asked you about it, what it was about, and
And then it was just like, oh, well, it's just a bunch of crazy shit going on, and you just read it. Just pick it up and read it. And then we both read it, and it was like, what is going on?
yeah, it's like if
I don't know
Murphy
what's
from
going
Murphy's Law wrote a Justice League comic. It's just everything goes wrong.
I
And
remember back before Metal had begun and it was still the dark days, like the Forge, the casting. Remember reading the Forge, looking at you and being like, I don't want to read this anymore. I don't know. I don't.
It's like, you just got to push through it, man. It's so awesome. It's
so-
so metal.
It's just so goddamn weird.
No, I think of, I guess that's a good example of the Batman that I would give for Dylan is like the New 52, or the current line of Batman. The things that I associate with Dylan that we've kind of spoken about before, Rick and Morty. It's something that
for sure.
like we all love that show, but you can quote it more, you can reference it more in depth than anyone I know personally.
I've watched it a lot.
Yeah, like I've made it through the 3 seasons, I think twice a piece at most. And there's references that you'll make, and it's like, I have no idea where that's from. And it's like, well, it's from Rick and Morty. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're on a different level when it comes to like the amount of times that you've actually read it or watched it, and like
Right.
what you've taken away from that. The other things that like we clicked on very early was like Dragon Ball Z was something that we clicked with very early.
Yeah.
Where
I think it was around MegaCon where it came to light because you bought the Trunks figure, and it sort of got me in the mood to buy that Gohan figure that I saw a couple times, and that's pretty much how we found out about that.
yeah, because it's like the anime side of things we don't talk about, or we haven't for a long time. We were all so very oriented on the comics, like the American superhero comic side of things,
Yeah.
that we didn't really touch on a lot of anime and manga. And so when that finally came out of like, yeah, I like Dragon Ball Z, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z. And then you got really into like the fighting game and the not the latest one. What was the one before that?
Xenoverse.
Xenoverse? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember, because that one you could like create your own characters and like play through your own storyline, which is neat.
Yeah.
And so like that was something. And then the other thing that that sets you above, like, is Dylan to me is just your knowledge of music. It's the fact of like a song can start playing and you can tell me in 5 notes what the song is, who it's by, and then what album it's on, and who the lead guitarist is for it. And it's like, I could have told. How do you know all that? Like, how do you keep all that up there?
I think when I think about you, I think about music. I mean, but where he's saying the knowledge of, that's how we bonded was music and Batman, but music. I know that you would come over and jam all the time, and you were like, I mean, Patrick plays guitar and bass, and I play drums and piano, and so we would end up Patrick on the bass, I would play the drums, and Dylan would come over and he's a phenomenal guitarist.
Fucking shred.
Yeah, no, he's really good, and so we would just hang out and jam for hours. We'd be out in my mom's garage for like 6-7 hours, basically the whole day.
That's cool.
Until they were like, okay, it's 9:30, y'all have to stop now. And
Neighborhood definitely didn't have as much fun as we did, but fuck them.
No, but it was really, it's a good time. We haven't done it in a long time. We need to do that again. But so I think about that. Anytime I think about like setting up, and I was with a few like garage bands in high school, just to hang out, whatever. But that's the one where I had fun. Those were, playing with these guys was cool. So I think about that. Futurama is one that I think about. Whenever I see anything Futurama, I think about you. Probably because when we lived together, we watched it so frequently together. And, we just watched a lot of Futurama. We got through the last few seasons together because it was on Netflix or Hulu or something. Netflix, and we just watched it. We just watched it so much. I would say, for whatever reason, there's a few obscure characters that to me are just you, that I think about, like Black Panther.
Real cool.
You were like one of the first people I knew that was like, no, dude, he's my jam, and I was like, oh shit, okay. And also I think about like when I see certain Star Wars things, I think about you. Like Boba Fett makes me think about you. And they kind of touched on you know what? A lot of the games that we played together too. Like if I see like Dishonored 2, I'll think about you because we played those.
Yeah.
What?
You have taken all three of the things that I relate Dylan to. In order, ironically. It's just awful.
I didn't realize that you had lived with Dylan and did the things we did together.
Calvin, that is my son you are talking about. Please see.
No, yeah,
part three.
that's my three things. Like that's it. Are you gonna do like a little editor's note?
I feel like I need to, because if this is the thing that we drop and you're like, oh, I'm gonna check this part out, and we start talking. First of all, you're very lost as to why Derek did a lot of research on the giant zombie megaducks, but also you don't understand that I birthed Dylan from my womb,
and he is still breastfeeding.
Right.
Okay.
You're never too old.
Well, it's okay. I can come up with three other
Okay.
ones.
Yeah. No, that's it for me.
All right. Yeah, Patrick.
Dylan, I relate you to three things that are different than Calvin's.
I like those are.
So I would say the first is probably a character that you and I share a lot of passion for, which is Daredevil.
Daredevil, yeah.
We both love the show. We both read the comic. But he's the only person I know that, like, the other day him and I and our buddy Tex and Derek, we were all at Yancey Street, and I had asked a question about who had read something from Daredevil. The new Marvel line after Secret Wars had ended. Daredevil was drawn in this cool, like, funky pop art way for a little while, and he was wearing a black suit and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And what's going on now is Wilson Fisk got elected mayor of New York.
Yeah.
And so I had said, did anybody read this? And Dylan's like, yeah, I'm reading Mayor Fisk right now. And it's something that he and I keep up with. He's got Daredevil collectibles. I have Daredevil collectibles. It's clearly a character that we share a passion for.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is that like Derek and you share a handful of memories of Rick and Morty. I think you and I have a lot of TV references that like Community.
Yeah.
And like you just lost a game.
God damn it.
Derek
I just lost the game.
Community, unlike Archer, and Family Guy, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. A lot of the crass adult humor shows that you and I like and quote at each other in a near violent thing. Oh, that's a good third one. Something that you and I both have several of from several different venues. of several different, breeds of character, we both collect Kotobukiya statues.
Yeah.
Like you have Magneto.
I have Captain America. Also,
Which I got. We got you Captain
For
America for Christmas.
Christmas
a couple years ago. Yeah.
which
that's
is
right. Yeah.
That's great. It goes well with my Iron Man that you have, which is a variant of the one that is across from
so
me.
he and I both have the same statue, which is a Kotobukiya Artifacts.
Marvel Now.
It's a Marvel Now Iron Man Artifacts Kotobukiya statue. And they're the ones with the magnetic bases. They're crazy good.
That had almost as many titles as our show.
It's true. But he has the red and gold classic Iron Man suit variant. I have the black and gold all new, all different Avengers variant. But I mean, it's the same statue. They're very good.
Yeah.
But then you have like I said, you have Magneto and Captain America as well.
Yeah.
I have Green Lantern from their Justice League line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that thing of, I see news for those, and I'm like when I saw when they released the Wolverine,
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta show that to Dylan because I think Dylan will like that. It's like every time I see a Marvel Reveltech figure, which is a Japanese import brand. I collect a lot of import figures: SH Figuarts, Reveltech, Figma, Mafex. I'm a weeb. I'm a weeaboo.
You've come to be one.
Yeah, thank you. But how do you say thank you in Japanese?
I don't think that you really can qualify yourself as like a weeaboo yet, though, because you still don't do things like read Black Butler. Like, when you get there, let me know. Not there's anything wrong with
Is it
that.
arigato?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Arigato. Arigato.
Oh, thank you.
See, when you said it, it sounded Italian.
Arigato.
Like, it just did.
Arigato. But I mentioned that to Lexi and Derek not that long ago. Whenever you're trying to fake an accent or fake that you speak a language, you just say foods. Italian, lasagna, parmesan.
It gets you there.
My love of Parmesan cheese.
I think it's pronounced parmesan.
Oh God, I'm so lonely. That Brannigan is the best character on Futurama. Fight me.
Yeah, that's specifically Kotobukiya. I'm happy I thought about that because that's a collector. That's a collector's thing that I only have with you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know many people who collect those. None of those are too far off. I'd say one thing, you guys talk a lot about how I quote Rick and Morty a lot. I feel like I quote Archer a lot more.
Archer was a toss up for me because I was trying to limit it to 3, and I was like, is it more Rick and Morty or is it more Archer?
I think for me, the defining point of that is that we all quote Archer. To me, Archer is not Dylan or PJ. It's the friend group. When I see Archer, I think about all of us. When I think about Rick and Morty, that's a you thing to me. My mind with Archer goes straight to just the fact that we always are just riffing on Archer.
But I feel like I quote Archer the most out of anything I quote.
No, the thing you quote the most is the one power outage episode of Seattle.
For sure, it's the best episode.
Ow! I wanged my shin on this. Ow!
Damn it! Moment of silence. Sparky just exploded.
What were you doing in my underwear drawer? Moment of silence, for Christ's sake.
Sweet that's one of the first things I remember you saying.
Yeah.
Sweet crackers, I'm blind.
You're not blind. The power's just
Utterly
out.
blind.
Maybe he went blind independent of the power going out. You don't know.
I would say that's my recommendation on behalf of Dylan for anybody at home. Go on YouTube and look up power outage.
Yeah.
C-Lab.
If you don't watch
think the
another episode.
I think the episode was called Fusebox.
If you don't ever watch another episode of that show, watch that one. Also, Derek, we all fucked up and forgot one thing about PJ.
Family Guy.
Family Guy.
I know. I think it's because he's been doing, and I don't want to say it out loud because then
Oh
he's
God!
gonna.
No, you're gonna jinx it. Don't. We all know what you're gonna say.
Okay.
Just don't.
We ruined it. He was doing so well, guys.
Joke's on you.
So Dylan,
Which is an actual
What's the
quote.
history, man? How'd you start?
One of the earliest things I remember being a big fan of is Star Wars.
Okay.
Because I remember, I don't even think I was old enough to watch the movie. I don't remember how old I was. All I remember is that I was not ready to see an old man get decapitated.
Okay.
Jesus.
For a second, I was like, Obi-Wan doesn't get to. Oh, you're talking about Count Dooku and
Prequels.
his extermination.
Wait.
That's a good question. Okay, what are you referencing with that? Are you referencing
Obi-Wan?
Oh, I thought you meant in Revenge of the Sith
No.
when Anakin
at the beginning? It's the opening scene.
No.
when the Senate.
Yeah, the Senate tells him to do it.
Yeah, no. I that movie came out far after I saw the original trilogy. But I remember watching it because it was just playing on the TV in my mom's room, and I just walked in, sat down, started watching it, and despite seeing that part, I still wanted to watch it.
Right.
And my dad borrowed the VHS set from his friend, and we watched it. We held on to it for a couple months, and I just watched it over and over again, the whole trilogy. And that was like the first real fan obsession that I feel like I had. But shortly before that, I was watching Batman the Animated Series, which I didn't get me too much into Batman, but it got me into it enough to have an interest in seeing the 89 Batman, which I watched and pretty much fell in love with it because of the dark,
For sure,
grittiness. It was a new take on Batman to me, and I really liked it. And I also remember watching X-Men the Animated Series when I was younger.
That is a good show, yeah.
They had that wicked guitar solo in the middle of it, and you were just like, what is this?
There was that. It was really those two shows that got me into like comic book characters and things like that. And
I mean, don't forget about Captain Planet.
I mean, strangely enough, that is kind of like it's a gateway into
gateway drug. Captain Planet is the gateway drug into adult superheroes.
I think so. I think it has.
Actually, thinking about it, I think that was Power Rangers for
Power
me.
Rangers.
I was watching that when I was really young.
That and Ninja Turtles.
Oh man, Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I never got too much into Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I loved Ninja Turtles was my jam.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Something you and I share as well is our mutual love of Injustice. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just like, I think this week just drop in as DLC fighters for Injustice 2. So I'm excited for that.
It was really neat that they decided to go with the gear, making the distinction between the four.
That's how they work.
We were
Instead of it being 4 different turtles, it's one turtle archetype, and then each character has gear that you can equip for them, and their special gear is their weapon. If you have a sword, you're Leonardo, nunchucks Michelangelo, sais Raphael, and a staff you're Donatello. They all have individual voice acting, different personal lines, different stories when you complete the arcade.
Different stances and fight styles too.
Stances, fight
which
styles.
Is incredible.
They all have the same super move, which is shell shock. Like one of them will run in and hit you, and then the second, third, fourth, and then they all hit you with the shells, and
that's cool.
Well, at least they put a lot of time and energy into that, because that seemed, whenever they announced it, it was like, that seems kind of a cheap way to get 4 characters into this.
I was a little bummed,
but they
look good. I'm excited
for
for it. Something else that I like, the story of at least, and this is the last bit of this tangent. Sorry, but in the Watchtower, which is their live discussion about the new DLC fighter, the victory pose for the turtle is they pull out a pizza, pull a slice up, eat the slice, and throw the rest of the pie at the camera. It hits the camera and kind of sags down. They motion capped a real pizza and they threw it at the motion cap camera, and that's how they got the footage. And so NetherRealms can officially say they have the most realistic pizza engine on Earth.
Does the pizza look real cheesy when they pull it apart, like it always did in the damn
but it has
cartoons?
fucking mushrooms on it, and I'm like, that's disgusting.
You know what, Derek? Do you remember in the live action film how good that fucking pizza always looked? They eat pizza like 3 or 4 times in that movie, and every time they like pull it apart, and it just has all that extra. And they eat pork rinds. And I love the turtles. That's all. I'm done.
Oh, okay, okay. Dylan, other than these gateway drugs into into geekery.
Hardcore nerddom.
Um,
Next thing you know, you're dressed all up in leathers and sweating it out there in the streets of Gotham.
Oh, okay.
What did you think I was talking about?
I don't know. Go
we
ahead.
Need to go over that. I can't really remember my first comic. It was a random Batman comic that I just picked up out of nowhere at Green Shift Comics. And I cannot for the life of me remember what it was, but yeah, the Batman was a big step into the comic book realm. Wasn't really too big into movies and stuff. I don't know. I just never.
Didn't click.
Right.
Like, I guess the time, like, I'd never found a good balance of time to sit down and watch a whole movie and really enjoy it. Video games, one of the first ones I really got into was Metal Gear Solid.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was BioShock, which I'm a huge fan of.
Oh, for sure.
And
GTA and Destiny are games that
we
we
play
as a
lot.
group kind of play.
Yeah. Well, and Dylan, you were with us when we did the Resident Evil 7 walkthrough, too. That was so much fun.
It was spooky.
Terrifying. I shouldn't say walkthrough. It was a playthrough.
Yeah.
Super scary.
So, really started off with Power Rangers, led into Batman the animated series, sort of led into X-Men the animated series, all the animated series really, and then sort of comic books, video games, and
That has just kind of bled into everything else.
yeah, and I didn't get into comics until shortly before I met you guys, and one of the I feel like I can almost remember that Batman comic.
That's
gonna bug me
as
now.
soon as you said that, that's had me thinking.
Yeah,
I
same
think-
here.
I don't know if it was honestly the first comic I've ever picked up, but the first one I remember like reading was a comic called It's Joker Time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize until very recently that it's actually part 3 of 3. So that's why the beginning was a little odd for me.
Okay.
But it's long enough that it's like I got this tail end of the story and like really enjoyed the storyline. And so now I have to I found it like literally a couple of months ago that that's part 3 of 3. And I saw it like on Google Images and I was like, that's that one. And I still have it somewhere. But I was very young. Patrick had bought a Green Lantern comic. Dad took us to the comic shop. Dad took us to, not Demolition. What was the one that used to be over by University Mall, PJ? Was it Wizard?
Demo.
Was it Demolition? There was a wizard on it.
No, it was Demolition Comics. It used to be a store called Wizard Comics, but when we started going,
It was Demolition? Okay. Which is gone now, too, isn't it?
Demolition is now in Waters. I don't know if it's the same Demolition, but there is
Probably,
Demolition.
yeah. Probably.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of nerdy people in my younger days.
Sure.
Not a lot of people who read comics or went to comic shops.
Well, you were like a skateboard guitar kid, weren't you?
Yeah,
Which is fine. It's just neat to see how you've...
yeah. When I was younger, I was a lot more active. Spent a lot more time outside, but
Welcome to being a nerd. He's like, yeah, I
it's
used
so
to
much easier.
sun and oxygen, and now I pizza and sleep.
Why would you want to do anything else?
Right. Do you remember your first comic?
No.
It's
Ever
really-
since he said it, I've been trying to
PJ, do
say
you
it.
have any recollection of your first comic? Do you know what it would be?
Oh, no, absolutely.
What was it?
The first comic book I ever read was a character I'm sure none of you have heard of. It is not very popular. It was a comic that was given to me by a friend of mine in elementary school named Ryan 5 something. Oh, shit. I remember the kid's name less than I remember the comic. The comic book is a book called Scud, S-C-U-D. It's a character called Scud, it's like the freelance assassin or the... Oh, no, it's Scud the Disposable Assassin. And it was an image book.
I was about to say, that's an image book, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a robot assassin. He's a 1375 or a 1373 model assassin robot that his whole job is he shoots his target and then explodes so they can't trace it back. He's a terrible shot. and so he's still alive. And I have a bunch of them downstairs because I like that book. But that's the first
That
comic
actually
book.
does sound interesting.
That's the first book I ever read. I was in 4th grade, and I read a little graphic novel called Scud, the Disposable Assassin.
Yeah, I actually just now remembered my
Oh,
first
good.
comic. It was a detective comic, and I don't know what line it was by or line it was in, but it was the reason I picked it up was because it had Paul Dini's name on it, and I remembered that from the animated series. And so like, oh yeah, this is a good start, and I picked it up, and nothing like exciting really happened, but it was an interesting story. It took place after some big event that I can't remember what, but Riddler decides to give up crime, and he opens his own PI firm.
Cool.
And Harley Quinn joins the Amazons to get herself straight as sort of like a rehabilitation program.
That's cool.
And it was the only one of the line that I had picked up, so I don't really know the rest of the story, but it was just a well-told story that I liked.
That's cool.
Derek,
Yes.
would you like to know what I relate with you?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. I relate the word edge because of how much you wanted to buy the Ford Edge.
I still do.
Yeah, it's a good car.
It's a good, it's
American made.
quality vehicle.
I relate Moe's and Tijuana Flats.
You have a
Okay.
hankering for Mexican food.
And also
Tex-Mex.
I relate when I spend the night at your house and I wear your pajama pants and we pretend that I'm your girlfriend.
Right. Hold
Pardon?
on.
Right.
Let's back that up. No,
Um,
I associate 3 very, very you and I things with you. Anything that is an Apple product
Yeah.
that I can make fun of to some
Yes.
capacity. I think of Derek. Derek and I met at Rocky Horror, but we really got to know each other because we worked together for the same off-brand Apple company for like 2 years.
2 good years.
Yeah. And so I relate anything Apple with you. Really technological stuff. Like this kind of work here, the audio and the filmography and the stuff that goes into the content that we try to make. I relate that with you because that's the thing that you and I always take on
Yeah.
as a sexual relationship.
Okay.
So the second thing is Halo.
Yeah.
I played Halo 3 when I first got my 360, and then I went back to an Xbox and played 2. But this was like 2000. When that game came out, like 2009. Is when 3 came out.
No, I think it was like 2005. I want to say was when 3 came out.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy how old those are? And we don't think about it, but they're so old now.
Yeah. Because it's like Halo 1, the one that
2007. Yeah.
2007. Okay, I was a little off. The Halo 1 was like in 2001, and so I've had the same gamer tag since 2001.
Angry Possum.
I have been Angry Possum for, what is that, 17 years?
Calvinator 711 that's all my social media, and it always has been.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I played 3 all the way through and 2 all the way through in like 2007, 2008, and then I never touched the series again. I picked up a book at a Barnes & Noble because it was in the dollar bin, and it was Fall of Reach by Eric Nyland. And I asked Derek if he thought it was any good. Derek's like, this is the best sci-fi book series, like arguably of all time. So I picked it up, I read it, loved it. Then I read The Shadow of Osiris or something Osiris. I can't remember what the name of the book is. The rest of Blue Team.
Right. I'm trying to think of which one that is, because that one may be one that I haven't read.
And then I read the other one with Chief in it.
The Flood.
Yeah.
And First Strike.
Yes.
Those are the first 3. Fall of Reach, The Flood, First Strike.
Right. And I read those. And so Derek and I have this tradition now. We are up to Halo Reach.
We're, I think, 3 chapters into Halo Reach.
Right. We played Combat Evolved, then 2, then 3, then ODST. Now we're a few chapters into Reach. Then when we're done with that, we have to play 4. And then by that point, I have to have my own Xbox so that we can then play the story mode of 5 and then just wait for the new one.
Right.
So technology and then Halo. And then I would say the third thing I relate to you the most is goddamn pop vinyls.
Okay, I'm fine with all those things.
Like I know there are a lot of people that collect pop vinyls, but
I think we all here have like.
I have a handful. Yeah.
I would think it's safe to say I have them over 20, and I think you're probably right at
about 20. Yeah.
And then Derek has. What do we count? It's over 100. You have over 100 pop vinyls at this point, don't you?
I don't know if it's that much.
Which there are
It's
people
definitely over
there
75.
It's definitely over 75.
Yeah, there are people that are way worse.
Oh, for sure.
But here's a quick anecdotal story about my friendship with Derek. So Derek and it is Force Friday of 2017. I am currently an assistant manager at a GameStop, and I have a shipment come in the day before of all the Force Friday pop vinyls. Force Friday, for those of you who don't know, is when Lucasfilm and Disney release all of the merchandise for the upcoming film.
Right.
So this was Last Jedi. And they released all of their pop vinyls, and then a GameStop exclusive who was a character named DJ, who was played by Javier Bardem. No, not Javier Bardem. Joaquin Phoenix? No. Well, Jesus, who's the actor's name that plays DJ in Last Jedi?
Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro. Thank you.
One of those weird names.
Guillermo del Toro. So that was the GameStop exclusive. How many pops was that, Derek? Was that 20?
I was actually trying to look that up. I bought that one day, I bought 22 pops.
And you got 3 from ThinkGeek.
In a single day.
So that would have been 19.
Well, no, I got 6 from ThinkGeek.
Oh, shit.
Because it was like buy 2, get 1 free, or was it buy 3, get 1? I gave you one of them.
No, it was buy 3, get 1 free. So
Okay.
it was 4 that you got from ThinkGeek. So it was 18. That's right. It was 18. So Force Friday is out. They've released 18 pop vinyls. One of them is an exclusive for GameStop, and they are all of the Last Jedi pops. And I text Derek that morning. I opened that morning, and I text Derek, hey, do you want any of these? I'll put them aside for you. And he's trying to be modest, and he was like, yeah, put these 2 aside. And I said, okay. I mean, is that all you want? I don't mind putting more aside for you. And he's like, okay, well, then put these 2 aside. I was like, Derek, I feel like you're restraining yourself. I will put one of each of these on hold for you. All the way, all of them. I will put one of each of them on hold. Do you want me to do that? A minute goes by. Yeah, I just checked my bank account. You're good. Go ahead and put them all aside. So I did. And my manager shows up and she's like, why do you have these aside? This is a big deal. These are Force Friday pops. And I was like, don't worry. A friend of mine is coming to buy all of these in one swoop. And she was like, okay. And so Derek left with a literal packing box.
It took 2 of their large bags at that GameStop to carry it all in.
Jeez.
Yep. And yeah, it's a good day. But that's why I think of pops when I think of pop vinyls. I'm like, that's Derek's his bread and butter.
That's my biggest collection right now,
Easily.
to an extent. I mean, I have a lot of comics, like single issues, but
You know, at the rate you're going, though, you're going to have more pops than comics real soon.
Yeah.
When I think about you, I think about Hellboy.
Yep.
That was our first big bonding talk, I think, was about Batman and Hellboy. And it was just like, oh, shit, you like, Mignola? And you were like, Hellboy's my shit. And then we just talked about it for hours. We talked about Hellboy. We talked about like the movies versus the comics. We talked about it, just all that shit. It's and along with that, it's that same sort of like that gritty, dark sort of the way that they were describing my tastes in comics in the earlier part. It's the same thing. Like when I see that, I think like Gotham by Gaslight. Oh shit, Derek would like this because I just read that. Or like the Mignola one, I read that. It was like, oh, he would fucking that is the connection that I made with you. I also think about 80s horror movies.
Yeah.
I mean, horror movies in general, like even the Universal, because I'm a massive Universal fan, and I think you're one of the only other people that I know that have seen, at this point, all of them. Didn't you watch them all, or like most of them?
I've seen, I think, half.
Okay.
Like exactly half of them.
So I think about, because when you were doing that, was that last year that you did that?
That was, October of 2017.
Yeah, and so when I saw you start to watch those, that's why I was always commenting on every time you would post your review of it, I'd be like, oh, this one's like my third favorite, or I really like this scene, because you're the only other person I think I know that's seen them. But really like that hacker slasher 80s gore fest, from thrillers like Halloween all the way up to like the really bad like Freddy versus Jason 3. Like I think about you when I think about that anytime, especially when we're like at Emerald City, because the Nika and a few of those companies have been doing a lot of collectibles for random slasher 80s flicks. And in fact, that's what I've gotten you for Christmas most years. Specifically Chainsaw, obviously Texas Chainsaw, but like I think about like even House of Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects. There's a lot of that like gritty horror stuff that just brings me right back to thinking about you. And then I mean, he covered Halo already, which it isn't even our thing, but I do see Halo when I think about the two of you. I mean, reasonably, it's art and film. Like, when I think about, maybe not go to a movie,
right?
But when I see a movie that I really like, I'm like, man, Derek would like probably really enjoy this, especially because the longer we hang out, the more I kind of can tell what you would and wouldn't like. And obviously, sometimes you surprise me. Because, like, I thought for sure that you would have liked Greatest Showman.
Right.
And it was kind of hit or miss. But then, like, you told me to go see Shape of Water, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So that and, like, wall art. Anytime I see good framed art, I think about you.
I like to plaster my walls in art, so.
I mean, you're the reason that I bought a bunch of art at MegaCon.
When I think of you, Derek, or things that remind me of you, one of the first things is actually Disney World.
Okay.
Because you go there a lot, you actually know a lot about like rides and history of the rides and stuff. And that was just one of the earlier conversations I remember. I don't believe I was part of it, but I remember hearing you and Calvin talk about it a lot, and you just had a lot of knowledge about Disney World and its history. So that's something that comes to mind. Another thing is, like Calvin said, horror movies, but specifically Alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's a little weird, but whenever I think of like filmography,
okay,
like whenever I'm, say, watching a movie and I'm thinking about like camera angles and like why they're doing that, what they're trying to capture, I just think of you. And also like film editing, like seeing things like the podcast set up, seeing microphones, just makes me think of you because you're into all that. Like,
yeah, and like I try to, whenever I can, try to explain it in a way that will make it interesting if I see those sorts of things, of like why I'm drawn to those sorts of things. Same thing with like talking about theme parks. I am a theme park guy. I like the way that they work. I like to know more about them, Disney specifically, but like I've worked at Busch Gardens, and that was fun for me just to be able, to be behind the scenes and see how everything kind of runs, to run a theme park. I mean, you guys both kind of touched on movies, and that's basically where my kind of like the thing that led me into this. We had our early stuff, like we had mentioned. I watched Power Rangers to death whenever I was a kid. I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All of those sorts of things, Nicktoons, those sorts of things. But Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles, those were kind of the closest things to those hero shows. I watched the animated series, the Batman animated series, I should say. If I'm completely honest, like I didn't watch the Burton and Schumacher Batman films like religiously growing up.
That's fine. Yeah. Especially Schumacher. That's fine. You don't need to really.
But I mean, just in general, like I didn't watch those movies. Like I saw them. I've seen all of them maybe twice in my life. I saw them as a kid, and I've seen them again in the last year of my life. So I don't know. I didn't have that connection to them. The things that got me into it is whenever I was a really, really young kid, like 1 or 2, I was really into dinosaurs, and because of that, I saw my parents were nice enough or dumb enough to let me watch Jurassic Park whenever it came out on video, and I was like 3 years old, and ever since then it's just been that is where the melding of my love of like dinosaurs became my love of film, became my love of filmmaking, along with Star Wars, because around that same time, 97, George Lucas re-released all the Star Wars films, and we got the special editions, which love them or hate them. That's basically how I got into the Star Wars films, were those versions of them. And I remember having that VHS set and playing it. And before the movies would start, there was a little like 5 to 10 minute like behind the scenes with George.
Yeah.
And he was explaining like, you know, whenever I first made these movies, I couldn't do these things that I wanted to do with them, so I've gone back and I've added these things. And they'd show you the before and the after and how they added and layered things on, and it was like, that's interesting, like that's cool. How do you do that? And so it just, Star Wars and Jurassic Park got me way into filmmaking.
Jurassic Park is a good one.
It's still one of my top 5 like favorite movies of all time. And then like Batman has always just been my hero. Growing up, I didn't watch all of the superhero shows or movies religiously. It was, I liked the characters all right, but I didn't know a ton about them. It wasn't until like junior high or high school where my friend Nathan, he kind of introduced me to comics. Where I'm from, I'm not originally from Tampa. I'm from a small town called Wauchula. So we did not have a comic shop in town, nor did we really have one close by.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't have the option of like buying single issues or really buying comics. So that was just kind of not a thing whenever I was a kid. But as we grew older, junior high, high school, we began, especially after we had, you know, cars of our own and we could just go, we were constantly spending, you know, every weekend we were in like Lakeland, where they had, you know, movie theaters and comic shops and bookstores and FYEs when those were a thing. And we would just spend all of our time in malls geeking out, like being fucking mall rats. Which funnily enough, like that also, it's like Kevin Smith is a huge reason I'm into the things that I'm into now, is that around the same time, Nathan and I got into Kevin Smith movies because of Clerks, and then into Mallrats. And Mallrats is very much, has a lot of comic book stuff in it. And Chasing Amy has a lot of comic book stuff in it. And Dogma has a lot of, you know, it's all like all of his stuff. Kevin loves all the same stuff that I do. And so he put that into film. And then that drew me into a love of film, a love of comics, a love of filmmaking. And it all kind of just blended together with that. And so that's where it really stemmed from, was movies originally, which then could lead me to the other things.
Right.
And finally having a friend who basically, he kind of did the same thing of your friend, PJ, when you were in suspension, which was, I wasn't in suspension, but it was that thing of like, you like Batman? Well, you need to read this. And, you know, hands me the fucking Dark Knight Returns. And it's like, okay, what is it? And it's like, this is Batman like you've never seen him before. Like, he's old, he's angry, right. He's coming out of retirement, he fights Superman, like, and it was like, okay. And then I, you know, read that, and then I love, whenever I love something like that, I like to go out and I do research and I read up on whatever it might be, and that led me to things like Watchmen, things like V for Vendetta, things, other comics that are renowned and right. are known for reasons, and they're seen as literature instead of just funny books. And that's what kind of drew me into the larger world of comics, where like those adult storylines, in comic form, Sin City, Hellboy,
sure.
Those things where it's like, wow, this isn't just your basic superhero, you know, Superman, the blue Boy Scout, you know, like
good
that.
Guys
right.
always win. And
yeah, it was gritty, and it was not real necessarily, but it was
sort of humanizing.
Yeah, and you could tell stories from a million different ways and perspectives, and it's not all capes and cowls.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
like
it's really
and that kind of is how I am now. Like, I love Batman, and I love there's several other characters that I really, you know, superhero characters that I read, but a lot of the books that I read and care about are more on the image side of things, that are more like sci-fi or horror related, right. Which all ties back into another early thing that got me into the genres of choice for me, sci-fi and horror, is the Alien franchise. You hit the nail on the head with that, Dylan. I saw those at a really young age. I don't know why. Those are probably the first like R-rated movies that my mom was like, "There's no nudity. There's no nudity in that. You can watch it." And it's
you
like,
can watch this
okay.
massive alien murder people on a spaceship.
Really, that came from going to like, we didn't have a we never had a Blockbuster in Wauchula. We had a it was a Hollywood movie.
Hollywood Video.
Yeah. Thank you. We would like go there on the weekends. My dad would take us, my brother and I, and it was walking the aisles of that movie rental place, and it was all VHS at that time, and then moving into DVDs. But it was such a cool time because we had all of the interesting art for VHS tapes,
Right.
that you don't get on DVDs most of the time now. It was just a different era, and so it was being able to walk into those aisles of like, well, these are the horror section, and you walk down and it's just like just crazy, bloody, horrifying thing after thing after thing. And like Gremlins was a very early one that I got into.
Love Gremlins.
Tremors was a very early one and my brother and I would rent Tremors 1 through 3 and Gremlins 1 and 2 just over and over and over again. And that also got me into like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice and things like that. But I one of the early ones that I actually got to watch that was R-rated was Alien. I don't know why exactly my parents thought that was fine, but I'm glad that they did because I love those movies. They are one of my favorite series out there. I still think Ridley Scott's Alien is one of the best horror films of all time. It still holds up.
Yeah, I like their newer stuff.
It's like I love the comics. I love the video games that I've played, and I love even the newer stuff that he's doing. It's a little out there at times, but it's that sci-fi that I love anyway, and it's bridging that gap between his new stuff and his Alien universe in interesting ways.
Yeah.
So it's like those sorts of things that really kind of open me up to the entire world of being a geek. I never had that like I don't guess I was bullied for being a geek as a kid.
Sure.
Or that I think like you.
Oh, I for sure was. Yeah.
I don't know if it's just.
I went to a rough school.
Yeah,
honestly, I went to a rough school.
We had one junior high. We had one high school.
Right.
For I had a graduating class of 300 people.
Jeez.
So it's like you went to schools that were much larger.
Yeah.
And you
No,
had
I
other
didn't.
options to go to other schools.
Yeah.
He didn't.
My graduating class was 26 people.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Dylan went to Jesus school.
Yeah, he did. He went to a Christian academy.
right. Okay. That's a little different.
They sang Ave Maria instead of the national anthem.
But that's so I guess that's just it. It's like I didn't have that we were cliquey, but like everybody kind of got along. Like everybody knew everybody. So there wasn't that like gap of
Gotcha.
let's pick on, this kid. And I had a good group of friends who like we were all into that same thing, and we had our own things as well of like, one of us may be more into video games and one of us is more into anime and one of us is more into comics, and all of us together brought things to the table, and that allowed us to also branch out in our likes and interests.
That's very cool. Well, if you want to tell us about your personal history, if you'd like to reach out to us in any way, shape, or form, you can always find us on pretty much all social media at Unmasked On Air. You can find us on our Instagram there. If you want to share your stories, you can always tweet us at Unmasked On Air.
Where can they reach you, Calvin?
Oh, you can reach me to talk about pretty much Batman or anything else. You can reach me at Calvinator711.
I have a MySpace.
Wow.
I am PJ the Mummy
Nice.
because my name is PJ. I am a mummy.
Dylan?
It's pretty simple. It's at Dylan Slimak.
That's not spell that.
Oh, that's SLIMAK.
Wow, that's really simple. Derek?
You can find me on pretty much every platform there is under at that D Rosenberg.
Cool. And that's B-E-R-G.
That is BERG.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for spending your time here with us. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled for the next issue, and stay tuned for more Unmasked on Air.
Wait a minute. It's been you this whole time.